Hi everyone and welcome back to Newegg TV. My name is Paul and today we have an unboxing and overview of the GIGABYTE G1.Sniper X58 Motherboard. Now the G1 Killer series of motherboards from GIGABYTE is aimed specifically at high-end gaming computer systems made for gamers who really like to show off their systems and have a really nice looking motherboard. So they've added a lot of features. Real quickly, let's go over the front of the box and what is compatible. Over down here we can see that this is compatible with Intel Core i7 processors on the 1366 socket 1366. It uses the Intel X58 chipset, still going strong. Also included is an X5 Extreme Fidelity 20K2 Creative Sound Blaster sound card, as well as an added Killer E2100 gaming network interface card made by Bigfoot. The back of the box has a lot of stuff on it, but if I go over all of that, then we're going to be going over all of it again once I actually get this out of the box. So I will hold on to that and keep it there for reference. And here's the box inside the box. And first of all, we're going to take a look at the accessories that are included. Up here on top, with a nice clear window for viewing, is the motherboard itself. And below it, we have our box of accessories. Just as with the G1 Assassin, we have a nice bank of decals for your computer case. Got some bullet holes, some bullets, some G1 Killer logos, as well as that nice skull with the bullet and the, that's a knife. So some nice logos to put on your computer if you're so inclined. Here we have a shooting target, which has been pre-applied with some bullets, as well as a G1 Killer poster on the other side, so you can throw that up on your wall again, if you are so inclined. Next up, we have our GIGABYTE installation manual, very important for installing the motherboard itself and getting everything hooked up right. Here we have our GIGABYTE installation CD with drivers. I always recommend going to the GIGABYTE website to download the latest versions. Next up, we have some connection cables. This is a 3-way SLI bridge. This board does support 3-way SLI using the NF200 chipset. Here we have a 2-way SLI bridge, so if you're going with a 2-card SLI solution, you want to use that one. And then here we have a couple serial ATA cables, it looks like 4 total, and 2 of those have right angle heads on one end. This is a front panel USB 3.0 port, which I'll get to in just a moment. I finish up with stickers that are included. Get everything out of the box. All right, here's a multilingual installation guidebook, also from GIGABYTE, so you can use that for installation if you speak languages other than English. Here's a G1 Killer input-output shield for the back of your computer. It's printed on there and has a G1 Killer logo. And finally, we have Dolby Home Theater stickers, as well as a GIGABYTE-powered sticker for your case, if you'd like to advertise the parts that you have installed inside. And that is pretty much all of the included accessories. Let me show you real quickly a closer look at the front panel USB 3.0 little bracket that they've included here. This is a really nice addition because if you're using this to upgrade and your case is older than, say, 3 months or so, you probably don't have a USB 3.0 front panel connector. These are fairly new. So what you can do with this is just pop that into a 3.5-inch bracket, 3.5-inch bay on the front of your computer. You route this cable back to the USB 3.0 header on the motherboard, and then you have a couple USB 3.0 ports right up there on the front of your case. Very nice to have, and a lot handier having those up front than in the back. Oh, and this is just a little baggie of screws to mount that. And now onto the G1 Sniper itself. I gotta make sure not to get these confused. Now, as mentioned, these are very similar boards, the G1 Sniper and the G1 Assassin. Unfortunately, I don't still have the G1 Assassin on hand. We had to return it, but I can give you guys a sort of rundown of what's the same, what's different. All right, guys, so here's the motherboard itself, and I'm kind of just going to go from the bottom to the top. But first, I wanted to point out that scattered across the board, they have 5 4-pin Pwm Fan Controllers, one here for the CPU, and then another, oops, I lost one. 1, 2, 3, 4 that you can plug in your system fans to. And then you can control those from the BIOS, or you can also control them using the EasyTune 6 utility, software utility from the operating system that GIGABYTE supplies. So that being said, let's start way down here in the bottom right corner where we have our front panel headers, and if you can see right down in there, they have color-coded that, which is very handy. Next to that, we can see we have USB. I believe that's USB. Yes. Next to that, we have 3 USB 2.0 front panel connectors. Next to that, we have a USB 3.0 front panel connector. That's probably what you're going to be plugging that 3.5-inch bracket into. Then finally, over here on the left side, we have our front panel audio connector, and it's nice to have that separated and down here at the bottom for running that cable across to the front of your case. Let's go back over to this side and we can take a look at our serial ATA ports. We have 8 here, internal serial ATA ports. These 3 are serial ATA revision 2, 3 gigabit per second ports. Those are controlled by the Southbridge ICH10R chipset. Over here on this side, we have a serial ATA revision 3 port, that's 6 gigabits per second. That is controlled by a Marvell chipset, Marvell 88SE9182 chipset. That is compatible also with RAID 0 and RAID 1. If you're plugging into the SATA revision 2 ports, you can run RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, and RAID 10. Finally, we have a couple more serial ATA ports, but they're all the way over here on the back. These are eSATA ports, which are here and here. And those are controlled by a J-Micron JMB362 chip. And for eSATA devices, and those also support RAID 1, RAID 0, and JBOD RAID arrays. All right, without getting too off track here, let's go back down here to where we were with the serial ATA ports. Next to that, we can see our Heatsink. This is a gun magazine with a little actual bullet sticking out the top there, covering our ICH10R Southbridge chipset. Nice little piece of flair there. While I'm speaking about the chipsets, I might as well, or about the heat sinks, I might as well point out the Northbridge heat sink right up here. It's got a GIGABYTE logo. I think it's made to be like a gun handle, and it also has some little LED lights that light up right there. They don't really do anything besides light up, but this board's kind of all about the added bling, so nice to have some little extra flair there. And finally, this heat sink right here also says G1.Sniper on it. And that one is shaped like the barrel of a gun. I don't know if you can get real close in there, you can see the gun barrel there with the sight up on the top. So those are your sort of little added flare heat sinks there for your various chipsets and MOSFETs up there. Let's go back down to the bottom before I get too distracted. Here is all of your PCI Express and PCI ports. Down here at the bottom we have a standard PCI port, so if you have an older legacy card, nice to have that so you can still use it. Here are your 3 PCI Express full-length slots. Top 2 are designated as 16-speed slots, and the bottom one is an 8-speed slot. And again, this will support 2-card SLI and 3-card S. Let me rephrase that. 2 or 3 card SLI or Crossfire configurations. So you can run 2 NVIDIA cards in SLI, or 3 NVIDIA cards in SLI, or 2 or 3 AMD cards in Crossfire. In between those, we have a couple single-speed PCI Express slots, and that pretty much wraps it up for our expansion. Over here on this side, we can see this whole area is pretty much dedicated to the audio hardware that they've included. Here we can see our Creative sound chip, the 20K2 chip by Creative, Sound Blaster chip. These are actually capacitors there that are for the powered front panel audio. It's got a preamp, so very nice to have for your front panel audio, especially if you're a big headphone user. From what I've read, this works fantastically with headphones. Right above that, we can see our killer E2100 network interface card with the memory attached there, and that routes to our Ethernet port right there. Killer 2100, you get the hardware and the software for that, both which are touted to be superior to your standard network interface cards. Our Creative CA20K2 chip, support for Dolby Digital Live, DTS Connect, also X5 Extreme Fidelity, EAX, Advanced HD 5.0 technologies, high definition audio, also 2, 4, 5.1, or 7.1 channel output for surround sound. Also has the SPDIF out in the form of a Toslink connector right there. There's your Ethernet port that we already mentioned. Here are a couple of USB 2.0 ports. Here are a couple more USB 2.0 ports on the top. Your powered eSATA ports down there on the bottom. Here are a couple USB 3.0 ports. Those are controlled by a separate chip. So there's actually two USB 3.0 chips on the board. One controls these two for your back panel, and then another one controls the that little front panel connector plug right there. Moving right along, we have an OC button right there that works with the GIGABYTE software. We have a coaxial audio connector, and we have our mouse and keyboard plugs. Okay, we are now on the top half of the board, so let's show our power connectors. We have our 24-pin motherboard power connector over there on the right side of the board. Up here at the top by the CPU area, we have our 8-pin EPS power connector. Over here on the right side, we have 6 DIMM slots. These are 1.5 volt DIMM slots. It supports up to 24 gigabytes of memory. And finally, here's your CPU socket area right there. They've provided ample spacing between the heat sinks for your chipset and your VRM area right there, so you can provide room for most aftermarket heat sinks fans. And that pretty much wraps it up for our overview of the front of the board. Real quickly, just to point out on the back of the board here, all of the heat sinks are mounted with spring-loaded screws, which is very nice because they're more sturdy, and also you can remove them if necessary, much better than using little plastic dip switches. And of course, even your back plate here for your socket 1366 CPU socket, also chrome-plated, so not that you'd be able to see that very well, but it is nice to have. And that pretty much wraps it up. Although there is one other difference between this board and the G1 Assassin motherboard that I should mention. This board is standard ATX versus the G1 Assassin, which is XL ATX, which is much bigger. So for those of us who are using a standard size computer case and maybe don't want to upgrade to something that can fit an XL ATX motherboard, but you still want all of the extra add-ons and goodies that GIGABYTE has included for the G1 Killer series, G1.Sniper is probably the way to go. For Newegg TV, my name is Paul. Thanks a lot for watching today's video, everyone. We'll see you next time.